Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and antagonism and narcissistic relationships and all that stuff. So, have you ever had something toxic in a relationship happen and somebody says, "Oh, come on, this is good for you"? Ever had that happen? Whether in childhood, with your family, in an intimate relationship, workplace, have examples of that, drop it in the comment. Because I can tell you, when something bad happens to you, doesn't feel good, and someone's telling you it's good for you, it's probably not good for you. Think about it. The many, many times that people are told that something that is actually really not good, that feels like hazing or devaluation or cruelty or minimization, that this is something that's good for you. Let's break this down with some examples, because this is a signature move in many narcissistic environments and relationships. So let's start with in the family. There may be a cold, distant, critical, or demanding family member, maybe a parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, anyone in the family. The child who is clearly withering under the experience of having to interact with this invalidating person is told, come on, it's good for you to hear some of this. Or a child in school who's facing down an invalidating, shaming teacher, not being given enough support, is struggling and is told to figure out things themselves. They're told, it's good for you. A person in a relationship is told that having to make numerous compromises for a partner, to make sacrifices, and really give up things that matter to them for this relationship. Oh, come on, compromise, it's good for you. Or a person in a workplace being told to work more hours with fewer resources because it's good for the organization or it's good for the clients, and then that the hard work on something so competitive, even though it's not for enough pay, well, that is good for you. Or something really unfair or unjust or just kind of bad happens in your life. You just want some support, someone to just empathize with what you've been through. And instead you hear, oh, come on now, these kinds of experiences, it's good for you. This is a classical sort of gaslighty play that we can often see in antagonistic relationships. To take something that works either for them or works for that system, or is a manifestation of the lack of empathy that cuts through these relationships. Since we are in a culture in which human vulnerability or emotion is so devalued, and we are told we can think our way through anything, I think it's a bit of a misappropriation of existential wisdom that all of this bad stuff, this suffering, is good for you. It's actually not good for a child to be invalidated and shamed. It's not good for a person to be in an inequitable, unbalanced relationship. Yes, people in many jobs are having to make do with less and do more. But that's not good for them. That's the manipulation. And in this toxic positivity world that we live in, that you can think differently about anything. That's the whole thing, right? So telling something that hurts them is good for you. Even people going through grief and loss and healing from trauma will hear nonsense like, well, this will make you stronger. Come on. The person's hurt. Yeah, maybe way down the road it will, but it's too soon if a person's being told it when they're acutely in it. The lack of empathy in all narcissistic relationships means that there's little consideration of how saying it's good for you hurts other people. But it's something worse here. It cultivates self-doubt and self-blame. People thinking maybe I'm weak because I'm not embracing this as a challenge. Maybe I'm not tough enough. Maybe I'm not like the wise scholars who tell us that adversity brings strength. Yeah, maybe down the line one day it will, but while you're in the middle of it, not so much. Even the existential scholar of all scholars, Viktor Frankl, doesn't say that the suffering is good for you. He suggests that we can derive meaning from it if it happens and make a choice in how we behave at such times. But he never gaslights people and tells them it's good for you. In fact, he goes to pains in Man's Search for Meaning to tell people, yo, don't seek out the suffering. Inevitably, it's going to find you. Ultimately, gang, masochism is never a good thing. This whole it's good for you kind of gaslighting play can also foster unhealthy intergenerational patterns with people believing, well, I was told it was good for me, so it must be good for the next generation. No, it wasn't good for you. So, no, it's not good for the next generation. But by it being positioned as being good for you, it's a real twist on what was happening. I've been seeing and hearing about this happening more and more, this whole, oh, it's good for you thing. Listen, I'm the first one to think it's good to be challenged. It's good to get feedback, even if it's uncomfortable. It's never good to be hurt and insulted and manipulated and shamed. It doesn't feel good, and it's not good for you. So the next time you hear that in one of your toxic spaces, it happens that something happens and you're told it's good for you, and the thing that happened doesn't feel good, recognize that maybe it's good for them. They get to maintain the status quo that works for them. They get to keep treating you badly or watch others treat you badly, and even try to leave you feeling like they did you a favor. I'm sure that's mighty good for them. But this idea of somebody being in pain, going through an acute struggle, and being told, oh, it's good for you, instead of meeting a person in a place of their struggle and empathizing with it, it really harms people, especially kids who are literally being told that this thing that harms them is good for them. That right there is also kind of the epigenesis of the trauma bond, and it's not good. So unless something really is good for someone and they're registering it on their faces, this thing that's happening is good for them, don't gaslight them by telling them it is. Thanks again.